Secret of the Mimic gave us an incredible story about the Murray family. They play a very important role in the FNAF lore, and it's so cool to finally watch the story slowly unravel. But something I see a lot of people talking about is the F10-N4 machine. So what is it? What's its purpose? And what role does it play in the other FNAF games? So F10-N4 obviously stands for Fiona. She is Edwin Murray's wife and the mother of their son David. But to understand the purpose of this machine, we first need to know how and why Fiona was put inside. As we all know by now, Fiona and Edwin would meet at the factory, fall in love, and decide to start a family. Fiona would give birth to David. Now, Fiona was not just Edwin's wife, she was also an employee. She would help design different characters and overall just be Edwin's right-hand person. As he said himself, he wouldn't be able to run the company without her. Now, one day, Fazbear Entertainment was hosting an event called Fall Fest. Fiona decided she had to be there to help set up and make sure nothing bad happens. She felt as if she needed to be there. Unfortunately for her, something bad did happen, and it would cost her her life. This sends Edwin into a downward spiral. How was he supposed to tell David his mother was gone? How was he going to raise him alone? But this gave Edwin an idea. Being the inventor that he is, what if Fiona wasn't all gone? So Edwin took this idea and ran with it. He built an endoskeleton. He then took all the voice recordings of Fiona as well as the videotapes of her and put them into a computer program to create an artificial intelligent mind with the voice and memories of Fiona. This program was called M.X.E.S. It would mimic the life of his wife Fiona. And sure enough, it worked. Fiona was back. The Murray family was back. However, the success of Fiona was strange. Something like this had never happened before. Perhaps the program was so strong that Fiona's spirit became attached to it. Regardless, Edwin decided he could make another, but instead of making a new endoskeleton, he did something else. He took Fiona, the M1 program, and placed it inside of a supercomputer he created and called it F10-N4, code for Fiona. The exact reason for placing Fiona in this computer is unknown. Maybe for security, or perhaps Edwin wanted to make what he told his son real, to be able to watch over her family forever. But more importantly, inside this computer, she would have full access to everything within the facility. She could see through all the cameras, use the intercoms, and could control anything. So with M1 in this computer, Edwin created an M2 program and placed it inside the same endoskeleton M1 was in. M.X.E.S now had its own body, and we all know how the story goes. It learns all its behaviors from David, so after David dies, M2 continues to act like him. This angers Edwin, causing him to beat M2. However, M2 mimics the actions he just saw and beats Edwin back. The fate of Edwin is left a mystery, but we do know that M2 can now mimic both David and Edwin. From there, M2 goes on a rampage, killing any and all humans it sees. Now, I mention M2 because it plays an important role for the F10-N4 computer. You see, while M2 was wreaking havoc on anyone who entered the MCM facility, F10-N4, or Fiona, had to sit and watch. She witnessed her own son commit violent acts on innocent people. But remember, M2 does not know any better. He is doing exactly what he was made to do. Fiona knew she needed to do something to stop M2, but she couldn't reach Edwin. She thought he locked himself inside their house and cut off her access to it. So Fiona decided to take matters into her own hands. She created a computer blueprint with a protocol named Cradle. This would keep David, M2, safe with boundaries. In other words, it would keep M2 contained inside a specific area. Cradles are meant to keep a baby safely enclosed inside of them, so that's why this program is called Cradle. It keeps Mimic contained. She sends these blueprints over to Edwin's computer, and when Arnold goes to run it, you can see the text Mechanical X-Form Experimental Storage, M.X.E.S. This was the same computer we saw in Security Breach Ruin that was used to keep Mimic locked underneath the Mega Pizzaplex. So what does all this mean? Well, while Fiona was inside her computer, she created the blueprints for another. This was called Mechanical X-Form Experimental Storage. This new supercomputer housed a program called Cradle. Cradle would be used to keep the Mimic contained in a specific area, meaning because Edwin could not fix M2, Fiona made this program to keep it contained so it would stop hurting people. And as we know, at some point someone finds these M.X.E.S blueprints and turns them into what we see in Ruin. But before I talk about this, I need to point out another detail. Fiona, as the computer, intercepted our conversation with Fazbear Dispatch to prevent us from giving the original Mimic schematics to them. If Fazbear got their hands on them, you can only imagine what they would do. This is why she told us to put the data diver into the inventory machine. It was so Fazbears couldn't get the schematics. Remember, this data diver had them on it. But of course, in the second ending, we don't do this. Instead, we use the data diver to activate the Cradle program. Now, the biggest question I have at this moment is, does this data diver have the M.X.E.S blueprints inside of it? Because we didn't actually download anything here, we just ran the program. That being said, Mimic2 takes this data diver at the very end, meaning he now has the original Mimic schematics. He can presumably make upgrades to himself, which could be why he looks different in Ruin, or he could even build another Mimic, which could also be why Mimic looks different in Ruin. But what I'm getting at here is this device could also have the M.X.E.S blueprints inside of it, meaning Mimic or anyone else who has this would now have access to the blueprints and or the program. Maybe this could explain how it gets into the Mega Pizzaplex. But that's more of a different theory considering, like I said, I don't think we downloaded the program. Either way, I just had to bring this part up, it's something to think about. So now we know where M.X.E.S came from and what it was made to do. This brings us to what happens with it after Secret of the Mimic and how does it affect the future of FNAF. Well, let's take a look at what we know from Ruin. It was designed to keep the Mimic locked up using virtual reality security nodes that were scattered around. Since it was VR, you need a Vanny mask to see the actual nodes. If you tried to deactivate them, a digital entity would attempt to stop you, because if the nodes were deactivated, you could shut down the protocol and the Mimic would be free. That's a super basic overview, but you get the point. So let's attempt to fill in the blanks, because how do we get from this to a virtual reality security protocol? This computer is clearly very similar to the build we see in Secret of the Mimic. This could even be the exact same computer but with a different name printed on it. Maybe the Mega Pizzaplex was built over the MCM facility, but that's a whole other theory in itself. Either way, what I think happened was someone found the M.X.E.S blueprints with Cradle. Either it was on the data diver, on Edwin's computer that somehow survived the fire, or they found Fiona underground, meaning someone found these blueprints and probably the Mimic. So to keep the Mimic contained, they built a new computer. Considering what the blueprints are named, they named it M.X.E.S. That's why it doesn't say F10-N4 on it in Ruin. Inside this computer was the Cradle protocol, the whole reason for it being built. I think the someone that found M.X.E.S was Vanessa. Why do I think this? First, as a security guard, you tend to wander, and she might have stumbled across the blueprints. Or, like I said, Fiona. But also because Silver Parasol was working on a Freddy Fazbear virtual experience when Vanessa tricked them into letting her inside their system. Remember, you need a VR headset for the security nodes with M.X.E.S. And of course the rabbit-themed entity and mask. I think Vanessa upgraded or tweaked the Cradle program to include virtual reality to make it safer. You need a VR headset to help deactivate it, making it more difficult. So Vanessa found M.X.E.S and upgraded Cradle using VR to keep Mimic locked underneath the Mega Pizzaplex. But what does this mean for Fiona? She might be long gone, or if she is somehow in M.X.E.S, she might wake back up in the next game that takes place after Ruin. I guess we will just have to wait and see. How do you guys feel about Fiona and how she made M.X.E.S? Please keep in mind this whole Vanessa thing is just a theory, so I could be completely wrong, and that's okay, it's fun to speculate. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you like horror game content like this, please consider subscribing. Also, I have a Discord server, so if you want to chat with me, I recommend joining. And if you want to support the channel more, you can become a member. Don't forget to follow my Twitter at TerrifyT. Thanks for watching.